Alright, welcome back everybody. This is gonna be the TLDR for the patch notes for last Epoch 1.0 release. We had the patch notes dropping a few hours ago actually, and whoa, it was a doozy. So many things are changing as expected. It was a very long read, about five and a half hours to get through everything. I've made some notes. I'm gonna try and give you a little bit of a summation here and some of the things that I would like to talk about. So we had a little bit of a video here, you know, a little bit of a patch overview from Jad, the head of ESG. And those videos from ESG lately, they're getting better and better. I'm really loving them. But let's get into it. Just remember, if you like this type of video, do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. Let's get into a few very important things from the patch notes. I'm just gonna notably here and say that we are getting full controller support as well for those players that do play with the controller. All of the links that I will be using for this video will be on the description if you wanna follow along and read along with me. Let's get into it with the most important part. Of course, we get the endgame rebalance, the corruption rework that we were expecting in 1.0. Now, of course, we had a lot of information about this a few months ago, and we are getting a few more balance changes to compensate for the whole corruption system being reworked, right? Most notably here, we are getting the enemy health and damage global increase above level 60, and it goes up to 25% more health and damage at level 100. This is a necessary change. We are also getting a few changes on the dungeons. Basically, tier 4 and tier 3 dungeons will be slightly more difficult on especially on the way to the bosses, basically all the monsters that we have to deal before that. We are getting the most anticipated corruption rework. This is gonna be a very good system in my opinion. Everyone's very hyped about it. I hope that it lives up to our expectations. And as you can see here, we already knew these numbers from the November blog post, and we are getting a lot more scaling on the basic more damage and health modifiers that corruption provides us. At 500 corruption, you can see we are getting 505% more health and more damage from 289. Now, remember that all of the monolith modifiers, they are getting significant nerfs to compensate that one. Basically, our difficulty will be coming from our corruption push right now and the corruption number itself, and not the different monolith modifiers. The changes to the monolith modifiers are that they can only last up to 3 echoes. So basically we can only stack 3 monolith modifiers and not like 5 or 6 as we did before, and they are not scaling with corruption increases, right? So we are gonna be we are not gonna get monolith modifiers that shut down our builds, bad combinations that make us feel bad. The difficulty is gonna be a little bit more plain and simple, but you're gonna have to adjust your builds, especially in the single target. I have a feeling that monolith bosses and Orobis fights are gonna be a little bit more challenging. We are gonna need a little bit higher defenses for a few of the abilities that we previously probably face tanked a lot more often, and of course they're gonna have more hit points, so expect a little bit longer boss fights in general, I would say. Now, come along with that, we also getting more legendary potential and Weaver's Wheel scaling with the corruption. Now, keep in mind, this is not an incredible amount of increase, but it is something that will definitely will make a difference if you are steadily farming at 300, 400, 500 corruption compared to before, right? So as you can see here at about 300 corruption, which is the, let's say, the baseline of most people farming, and around mainly what all of the balance changes are coming to the game from ESG. We're gonna get 10% higher chance for plus 1 LP plus on our unique items. We don't have any numbers for the Weaver's Wheel. Hopefully we're gonna be blessed with more wheel on those unique items, because they're very awesome to level up. I will be leaving this link below as well. You can check out all the monolith modifier values here. As you can see, those do not increase for corruption. So basically, void enemy damage or elemental damage or even physical damage, those were scaling to some incredibly stupid amounts, and now they're just gonna be pretty basic. Let's move on. We are also getting some blessing changes, some quality of life things as well. Basically, all of the resistance blessings get a higher minimum roll here from 45 to 55. That's gonna be really nice, much easier to actually min-max our blessing rolls. The armor blessings from Age of Winter and Spirits of Fire are getting a slight nerf, and we are also getting some ward decay threshold on the blessings. Nothing else is extremely notable. I think the highest amount of nerf that we are getting is on the spell lids and on the throwing lids percent, from 5% to 3 down to 3.5%. This is from the Black Sun timeline. Again, linked with the blessings will be on the description for you. Let's get into some mechanics. We are getting Parry, which is gonna be a new defensive type, and it's gonna come into affixes in our items. It's gonna be pretty good, I think, for some classes. I think this could be a nice addition to especially classes that don't have access to dodge. It kinda is like dodge. It negates all damage from the hits that you parry, but because they do still count as hits, if there are ailments coming through them, they will still apply it to you. The cap is 75%. It is not possible to reach that cap with available sources, and I really need to mention this. From all the patch notes, there is no parry being added to any passives for our classes and masteries this time around. Stun avoidance also is getting a very big and very much needed rework, in my opinion. I have played quite a bit of Sentinel, especially. This is very notable on Sentinel. We are getting stunned constantly. It's one of the reasons that we are using Strong Mind on the Conqueror Paladin, and I'm not gonna go through everything here because there are a lot of numbers, but basically what's going on is that the stun avoidance now has a much different mechanic and how it scales. So if you actually have stun avoidance, you will feel a difference, and a lot of builds might end up utilizing this new mechanic. We are getting some changes into the stun avoidance affixes, and the hybrid stun avoidance for the amulet can now also roll on belts as a suffix, and it's gonna be basically stun avoidance and life. So this is very important to note, because we are getting an extra life suffix on our amulet for any build that would like to use that. We have a lot of suffixes on our belts, so I don't think it's very huge there. Now let's get into some passive changes. This has been a little bit of a complaint from many players. Not a lot of passive changes. I was expecting that. I've been talking about this for months, basically, that we are not gonna get a huge balance pass on the passive changes. We're getting so many things already for 1.0. Let's not get greedy, and let's check out what's going on with the passive changes. I'm also gonna grab my notes here because there are quite a few things that we are getting later on for the skills as well. So most notably for the passive changes, Berserker from Primalist gets a little bit of a nerf, but nothing too insane. It's still gonna be good for the builds that utilize it. And the summon is getting a couple of extra passives that support mainly Stormbolt, and we are getting a lot of things that support Stormbolt into the Primalist. I'm fairly certain we are actually gonna have some really cool spellcasting builds around Stormbolt now, and I cannot wait to delve into it. Also, when it comes to mages, the Rune Master Ward Generation gets a few adjustments. Nothing gets gutted, I would say. And we are also getting all of the Rune Ward buffs up to 10% to 10 spell damage instead of +6. So basically, very slight nerfs to the Ward Generation as expected, but nothing too insane. Rogue and Sentinel basically don't have any changes. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, they avoid everything. Now we have a lot of skill changes actually, so I'm gonna only go through some of those things that I find interesting, and I believe you're gonna like them as well. So let's start with the Acolyte. We have a slight nerf, as you can see here, on the Engorgement with the more damage per minion consumed. Very slight nerf. We are also getting a slight nerf on the flame rates. Basically, the projectiles, they're not gonna be lasting as long as they do right now, and that means that they're not gonna be off-screen enemies as much as they do right now. It is kind of ridiculous right now, so it's not a big deal. And they're also getting 20% less cast speed. That is all for the nerfs on the flame rates. They're still gonna be extremely powerful, and you can still go for it as a league starting build, no problem. Now, we have some really cool changes to the skeletons actually, which I wanna talk a little bit about. So the actual Vanguard skeletons that we are using, leveling up for our flame nails, and maybe you actually use that later on. Dread Phalanx actually gets 40% more health. I really like this change. Skeletons are extremely squeezy, so this might help them quite a bit. And we're also getting flat crit into them instead of the 20%. This is gonna add up to be 4% added crit. Multi-shot gets a nice more damage multiplier as well for our archers. Rogues are getting a lot of changes on basically everything they are doing. I haven't used rogues yet, but with so many changes, I'm kinda keen on trying them out after 1.0 drops and see if we can get a build eventually. Now, for mages, we are actually getting a couple of changes. Not insane things, I would say. Black Hole most notably gets quite a few nodes, with less points needing to be spent there for basically the same exact benefits, which is always really nice. It might open up some possibilities, but Black Hole hasn't really been used so far that much. Disintegrate getting a little bit longer beam, so more reach. Frostglow is getting Silver Cell and Raywin's Veil Ward Generation nerfed as expected, to be fair. And the Gift of Winter is actually gaining a much higher chance for regaining mana. So previously we had 4% chance per cast to regain 12 mana. Now it goes up to 12% and you can get it up to 36 with 3 points. So a very good change right there, because Frostglow, it does get a little bit iffy with the mana usage. So 1 out of 3 spellcasts will give you back 12 mana, which is a significant amount. So pretty good there. It's gonna be much easier to use it early on without having insane gear and mana reduction cost on your gear. Frostwall Prepare Words finally is getting a little bit of a nerf here, and it's actually getting 12-second cooldown on the Frostwall and Flame Ward, and it's a shared cooldown. I want to see if that nerf is gonna be enough, but I do believe it's gonna be good enough for the time being, and it's not gonna get abused as much as it did last patch. Now, Glyph of Dominion, slight word generation nerf through the maximum resistances. Nothing too insane though, don't worry about it, it's still very powerful. Rune Bolt is getting some very slight buffs, and more notably, it's getting 20% more cast speed on the base cast speed of the spell. So this is gonna make builds with Rune Bolt even more smooth and much easier to use it. Runic Evocation, our Plasma Orb is getting a little bit of a buff, 40% more damage with the Plasma Orb hits. This is the fire component of the spell, so we are getting more powerful, thankfully. Ergon's Fireball actually gets more damage on the hits, and also the Spreading Flames is getting 100% more damage as well. So it's gonna be amazing leveling up with Ergon's Greater Fireball. This is the Fire Runic Evocation. I'm really loving it. I'm not sure if we're gonna get any endgame builds with it still, but just for leveling, it's gonna feel amazing. Hydrahedron is getting quite a few nerfs. It's getting less damage on the Runic Evocation spell, and also the Hydra box is getting much less cast rate from it. We're gonna check that out later on the items. Snap Freeze is getting 18-second cooldown, so they're not destroying the skill. We're still gonna be able to actually get a little bit of usage, but not fully abuse it. Primalist, the wolves, they lose 70% more crit out of the passive node, and from 4 points on that node we are actually getting 1 node only, and it now gives different things. We are getting more damage out of the basic wolf companion, but squirrels actually get nerfed about 38% less melee damage. Now the wolves also have some retaliations, and they proc lightning bolts. They are now proccing storm bolts, and they are proccing the player's storm bolts. So you can scale the storm bolts that the wolves are gonna be able to proc. We might actually finally get to see some hybrid, spell casting with companion builds on the primals with that, but we're gonna have to see in action. Our Beastmaster Scorpion is getting a little bit of a buff on the tail attack. We're getting 200% chance to poison on hit from 100%, and also we are doubling the duration on those poisons. Now the tail attack comes every 5 or 6 attacks according to Cookbook, who has blessed us with this amazing build as a league starter, and it's only a slight buff, about 5% more damage. Cookbook has done the maths here, so once again, thank you very much. And Thorn Totem is the last thing that we're going to be talking about. Skills on primals is getting a slight nerf to the poison maximum explosion damage that you can stack, and a little bit less cast speed on the single thorn, but we don't really care about the cast speed on the single Thorn Totem. So basically unchanged, I would say. Anyone that wants to play Thorn Totem is still completely fine. I'm not a rogue expert, but I'm just gonna mention that Ballista is getting 50% more damage and a little bit extra attack speed. Shadow Daggers also get less base damage and less effectiveness. There are some other changes to the rogue skills, but I'm not gonna comment anything because I'm not familiar with all of them, so I'm not gonna mislead you there. Sentinel is getting a Resin Strike, more effectiveness, and on a couple of other skills, but nothing too insane. Judgment is getting a slight nerf on the Pious Offering. This is the node that we are using for our Judgment builds to get more damage multiplier per mana consumed. Basically, what's happening, we are losing 1% more damage multiplier per 2 mana consumed from previously. It's not insane. If you are planning on playing Concord Judgment, the build that a lot of people are interested in, you can still do it. You just are gonna have to aim to get a little bit higher mana pool and you're gonna be fine. Rive is actually losing the more crit node that it has, but it's actually getting some different synergy with Force Strike and Force Weapon duration, and I'm really excited about that one because there is a slight chance that we might actually get a Force Guard build out of it. Basically, you are getting a buff that gives you more damage with Rive based on the whenever you would instead summon a Force Weapon, and the duration of Force Weapon actually increases the duration of those attacks. So we might have some kind of rubbing. I'm not sure if it's gonna be good or not. It's definitely very, very interesting. And Vengeance also is getting some slight buffs and might see a little bit more use here and there. Now, other than that, let's get into some item changes. I'm not gonna mention a lot of things here, but Aberrant Call is getting the increased minion damage mod to only affect minion melee damage. I don't understand why exactly, but it's not really something that it's gonna be affecting us very, very much on the flame rates. And of course, the legendary potential level is getting up to 38 from 10. It's not insane. You're still gonna be able to drop your Aberrant Call with LP fairly simple, and you will be getting your best in slot if you're going for a build like that. Arthur's Legacy, which is the helmet for the Primalist, is also getting a little bit of a change. They are changing the base type of the item. It's getting a little bit more flat armor and some freeze rate multi because it becomes Ice Wolf belt, and it's getting +1 to 2 to all minion skills. So extra minion skills out of that one there. And we already talked about Box of Hydra. The max cast rate becomes 36 from 54, significant nerf, and the max cast rate on the Hydra box has been the best affix for this build. Now, Mad Alchemist Ladle is getting quite of a significant nerf. It only grants 6% more spell damage per negative element from 8, and it also caps to 8 up to 8 elements. Now, this is gonna be a really, really big blow for a lot of builds. I think personally I would look for a very good exalted weapon or some other kind of unique for my Plasma Orb. You can still use Mad Alchemist Ladle, don't worry about it, especially early on. It's gonna be really powerful still, but it's just not gonna have the potential of scaling incredibly into the late game because we are covering the 8 elements extremely easy. Any changes to the Plasma Orb that will be happening, I'm gonna be making a video. Paranoia finally got fixed and also got a little bit nerfed on the base type from Dawn Helmet that gives 400 armor, becomes a full helmet, only 100 armor there, but they're getting an interesting affix, 7 to 13% less damage taken while moving. This is gonna be incredible for Warpath players especially. And Twisted Heart of Eucharos is getting nerfed once again, 3rd time in a row, and the current health to ward conversion modes become 5 to 8%, down from 10 to 13%. Maybe that's a change mostly because of Warlock being able to utilize both elemental and necrotic things out of Twisted Heart, but this is just insane. We are also getting a lot of changes on the base items for the classes. I'm only gonna mention a couple of things here when it comes to new base types, and I'm gonna mention for boots, we are getting an amazing new base type, Citadel boots, 185 flat armor, 15 to 18 movement speed, and we are getting 35 to 50% reduced damage from crits. We are getting quite a few of those affixes on implicits now, and getting crit capped is gonna be even easier than it was before, and our Emperor of Corpses blessing is not gonna be locked as it was for many builds. Arcane boots also get ward decay threshold, And Vanguard Bulls, which is something new, they have a lot of movement speed, 15 to 18, and also up to 50% increased effect of haste. Increased effect of haste is something that we also getting quite more often into the game right now. So we're gonna have some speedy builds. Gloves, I'm gonna mention that we are getting an amazing new base on gloves. Eternal Gauntlets, they have 211 flat armor on them, which is absolutely insanity. It is above double the flat armor we were getting from our base gloves, and it also provides 11 to 24% of your armor mitigation to be applied to damage over time. We are getting more and more of that amazing affix that I really love for mitigating the damage over time. Weapons are getting some slight nerfs and buffs, but no dramatic changes there. We're gonna still be using the same base weapons that we used for our builds. And rings, Ivory rings, once again, they're losing the ward retention and they're getting ward decay threshold. This is a theme on a lot of different things. When it comes to the class body armor and helmets, they do get quite a few changes. Most notably, we are getting a lot of new bases for a lower level, which they're not very much very important, but they might give us a little bit easier time on our league start. But other than that, there are some interesting ones later on into the game if you want to check them out. And yeah, this link is gonna be on the description as well, with all the changes for all the different classes. The weapon affixes get a couple of nice changes as well. I'm only gonna talk for the generic ones. We are actually getting parry chance on our weapon, except wand, scepter, and bows. And we're getting hybrid mana and mana regen, but we'll see if that's gonna be something that we are using. This was the big change when it comes to weapon affixes. Basically, the minion spell damage, the minion melee damage, and the minion physical damage affixes, they change and they become hybrid flat damage for minions now. As you can see, minion melee damage and minion spell damage, minion melee damage and minion bow damage, minion spell damage and minion bow damage, and they can roll on different types of weapons. I'm gonna mention that the minion damage over time that it can also roll on some weapons remains to be the same, and we are not losing that one. And we are getting also the hybrid damage penetration for our own damage and our minion damage as well. This might come in handy, but we'll see. There are plenty of changes into the 1.0 release that we're gonna have in less than 2 days, and there's gonna be a 24 downtime before the release of the game. There is the timer here for the release. This should show on your own time if you actually open up the link yourself. This is all I had to say about the patch notes. Hopefully you find that very useful. If you have any questions, please drop them below on your comments. And of course, I want to hear your opinions. Do you like the new changes? Do you like what you see from EAG and how they approach the balance of the game? So far, I'm fairly happy with how they do things in 1.0 specifically. We didn't get massive nerfs that destroy builds, but we are actually getting important nerfs here and there that they're gonna bring more balance into the game, and they are trying to elevate some things that they haven't been used that much before. Thank you all very much for watching. I will catch you into the next one, and I'm really hoping that everyone is gonna have a really nice league start for 1.0. Bye bye.